as a business, opening up businesses, the first thing I used to do was go into an environment of networking and start passing out cards. That's what I did when I was younger. But now I'm older. And I realize you don't get into a networking event and just start throwing your cards out, leaving them on the tables. I saw somebody just like 2 months ago, just walking around with cards and leaving them on every single table. Waste of money. If you don't even know the person you've given the card to, what reference are you going to have? How are you going to build anything with them? You'll be like, oh, yeah, I stopped by your table and I left a card there. No, people, no. You don't even know if that's the right person. We haven't even got into avatar. We haven't got into target market. We haven't even got into target audience. You don't even know if that's the right audience yet, much less the right market, much less the person that you want to work with. You're just trying to grab stuff. So that's where it comes down to building relationships, y'all. Let's build relationships, because when you build relationships, everything works more smoothly. That's it. I'm off my soapbox. You asked the question. I'm done.
We get a chance to go deep. So I appreciate that. And I appreciate you giving such a thorough answer. a lot to unpack with that. Prior even to coming on this show, and this is me and Chat GPT having a conversation, was the amount of depth that we tend to get into. And it's interesting because when we go out into the world, it's a lot of surface layer conversations that happen, and it's okay, right? Like you mentioned, sometimes we have to get a chance to feel one another out, so on and so forth. So we lack depth and breadth within our conversations, and so I'm glad for a chance for us to get on Community Beacon, and then we can go deep into some of these conversations, because once again, what is it? The attention span now has went down. People are on TikTok. I remember Beethoven, which is true. If you don't catch somebody's attention in the first 3 to 5 seconds, they're gone. So you don't even get an opportunity, to jump into it. So when I do get the opportunity to have a deep conversation and expound on some things that probably been in our heads and we just kind of been mulling it over. Conversations we had with Chat GPT, but the blessing is to have that with an actual person and be open to it and go back and forth and expound on what it is that we know and get a chance to hear what somebody else does know and how we take it all in. Like that's the real gift for me. And so I appreciate you. And I know we didn't jump into who we are. It's on the screen, guys. Palm Beach Mike, your real estate guy here in Palm Beach County, Northern County specifically. Here's what I'm gonna tell you. The next 18 months. Is because I had an awesome conversation with, I'm so blessed to be in rooms with some of these people, with Dean Jackson yesterday, and man, when he presents, it's so simple and clear, the numbers to you. So I'll probably be the Palm Beach Townhouse King in the next 18 months. So that's what we're working on. And then of course on the other side of the screen, we have my brother from another mother. Back in the place to be, the incomparable Joel Simmons, world traveler, international speaker of the Tenacity Foundation. We're experiencing life and racking up things that just we're in motion, man. And I'm excited about us as we get into our next topic. As the brother takes a drink of water. Which is the power of communication. Over the next 2 to 3 months, maybe 8 to 12 weeks, we'll see where we go with it. we'll be diving into what I think is probably one of the most, I wouldn't even say it's underrated skill, one of the best skills a person can put together. And it is a skill. It's something that you work on. It's something that you can improve upon if you keep an open mind about it, and you tap in. I would also add that this, along with psychology, which I thought was interesting, something that Benjamin Hardy said. I'm listening to his book. He spoke on psychology being one of the most misorganized and mistaught fields, industries. There's so many people going off doing their own thing and trying to add things and expound upon things that aren't necessarily even true. So oftentimes we start from ground zero, and there's no focal place. There's no what's the word for it? There's no area where they all come together and just build off best practices. And let me not say there aren't any, but they're not as prevalent as they probably should, right? And then you got academia, so we what ends up happening is we have academia, which makes it overcomplicated. And then he mentioned, then we have the marketers that make it they're trying to sell you something. And when you hit that middle ground is where you really start to see a shift. So I think that we'll be doing something like that with the power of communication as we go along in the series. And guys, if you have questions, thoughts, concerns you want to add, please engage. We don't get me wrong, me and the brother can talk. we have 2-hour long conversation, 3-hour long conversations. We can get into it, but we put this on this platform so that we can get you to engage, add to it. We're open to it. So, brother, that's mine.
Let's go. I mean, already it's all about the impact of our words, right? That's what we're getting at. This is what we're talking about. Even that pre-conversation about networking. It's about the words you say. It's about the words you don't say. So I'm excited about this too, Mike. I'm excited about it. The power of communication, and I'm glad to be here with you. Here we are. So, like, picture this. Think about this. Mike. 2 a.m. Sirens are blaring, and racing out to the truck, headed to that call. CPR in progress. One wrong call over the radio, one hesitation when I get there. Lives are hanging in the balance. Words they aren't noise. They're lifelines. They spark. It ignites. And when chaos is around, we got to anchor ourselves to our calm, the calmness of our spirit, our mindset, right? Whether we're talking about leadership in general through the fire department or through committees, meetings, organizations, inside corporate world, or in parenting, in the raw family moments, our words can create a rippling effect, an echo for generations. Like you just had Elijah sitting there, and he was like, Joel, Uncle Joel, was I talking with you in Japan? It's like, yes. He's going to remember that. Just like my mom still remembers, the time when I was like, hey, Mom, Mike's on his show right now, his Monday show. He's on it right now. Why don't we just get you into it right now? And we pulled out the cell phone because technology is where it is. And I logged in. I said, hey, Mike, I'm here with my mom. The sun was setting on the streets of San Francisco. We were on a double-decker bus sitting at the top watching the sun set. And Mike looks and sees and begins to say, hey, the brother's trying to jump in with his mom right now. And he lets us in to the environment of the podcast, and boom, My mom is now live streaming, and she's able to captivate the audience with her wisdom, her knowledge, her understanding. And so it's like these words, they have a rippling effect. And why do I say that? Why do I use it as an example? Because we just talked about it just a couple days ago. She's reminiscing about when she was on Mike's podcast and the impact of that. So when we start talking about words, we've got to understand that they do matter. We can't keep on singing a song, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me, because it's not true. Sometimes words can have a more deeper uh, impact on an individual's life than the sticks or the stones. And if we can understand that one word that can be spoken can change anything or everything in your life, then I think that we will be more cautious on what words we use. What say you?
What an awesome intro to what we're about to get into. I'm you brought up the old nursery rhyme, because we hear it oftentimes when we're younger, that sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt us. And we find out later that it can't be true. So it's interesting, because I was going to get into that. Like, one of the biggest communication issues that we have today is that it doesn't start off in truth. If you went back and look at principles, that was the first principle. It doesn't start off in truth. In sales, they'll tell you that their the impact of communication is like 92 or 93% nonverbal. You got your tone, and you have your the way that you physiologically, how you look physically, right? How you stand if you're in front of people, how you move your hands, so on and so forth. And they say that words are only worth 8%. But and they say it all the time. This is just common knowledge. This is common sayings when you get into sales. And if you just go one step deeper, what you find is that that's only when you have words and you're doing something in direct opposite of what your words are saying. Like, if you were to be smiling, you say, "I'm sad right now." Right? That's when it applies. It doesn't apply altogether. In fact, the words have such an effect on people, and that it can send you off into a tizzy. We often say that people lack emotional regulation, and that's not true. There are certain people have emotional regulation because you got to have it if you're in society, right? If you understand the decorum of society, which most people do, if you are a functional member of society, then you do have emotional regulation. You're not just going around doing and saying whatever it is that you want to do. However, when you become triggered, that can cause you to have emotional dysregulation, and for you to go off on different tangents, and for you to look at something in the face, the numbers in the face, and say, "Oh no, that's not true." For you to actually have an experience of something, or observe it, and for you to say, "Yeah, that didn't happen," like, because maybe someone said something to you, and the brother said had an awesome word. He said, and impacted you to the point of where it's had you have this emotional dysregulation. There's a mentor of mine, shout outs to Dre Taylor, and he says this all the time. This is one of his sayings. He says, "Words have worlds." The words you use, they have worlds. And if we can just feel the weight of that and just sit with it for a second, and understand the how much impact it can have, we probably would pick our words more carefully. Our next action may be a carefully thought out thing. Because if we sit there, if we get rid of this sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me. If we go to the A's, right, brother? If we become aware and acknowledge and accept that that in fact is not necessarily true, then what we say can have that just, and what we say can have an impact. I believe we would take time out to choose what it is that's coming out of our mouths. We'd be more careful with it, because every word that we drop creates something. The brother spoke about trust. It builds trust. It can spark an action, and it can do the opposite. This is a conversation I had with my father recently, the last time he was here. I said, he told me something that happened. And I asked him, I said, well, let's look this up. So when we looked it up, we went to several reliable sources. And I said, well, this in fact didn't happen. And I can tell you that the gist of the conversation was that the Prime Minister of Jamaica gave himself a raise, like to, a couple $100,000. And which I think if you run a country, you should get a couple $100,000, right? It was at like 60 to 80,000. But now it's that he tried to give himself a raise to a couple $100,000. There was such outrage amongst the people that he decided he wasn't going to do it. This is what ended up happening. But what took off was that he did give himself a raise. And so this is what my father was hearing, and he's repeating. And I said, well, you do see that now that we've had this information, I would give you, here's what I advise. It's my father. He advises me. He gives me a lot of information. But I said, we need to be careful, especially as men, about what we say, because just as the words we can have can add credibility to us, once we understand the nomenclature of industries, so on and so forth, it can also discredit us. Because now if I'm the person that goes and looks this stuff up, and you are so sure, I always say there's nobody that'll gaslight you more than a black woman than a Caribbean man. Don't cancel me, but I'm just saying, right? You can be discredited by information that's not necessarily accurate and or correct. So make no mistake about this. The words have worlds. And I think as we continue, and because that's the impact of it, right? It's going to take we'll continue to expound upon this and get to it. Let's start from the beginning, because I think it's important for the people. Yeah, forgive me, brother. Sometimes how we do. That's what the brother said last time. How we do. I think it's important for people to know and understand why it is that we can speak from this vantage point. Because we didn't just wake up today and say, oh, we're going to study words. We're going to study what I think is communication. And we're going to talk about communication. Let's just hurry up and put this thing together. Right. I know absolutely that that's not the case. So if you want to start, just give us the background on how this was a topic that you suggested. And I think it's an awesome topic. But let's just give them a little bit about us and how we come to this, how we're having this conversation.
Actually, it's a lot more simple than it is complicated, y'all. And so I'll just give it to you straight up. I reached out to my team and I had them to look into what we do. And I said, listen, Mike is looking for a few topics. He asked me about some topics. I'm putting it on you guys. Give me a few topics. And I want to see what it is that you come up with. So my team is just like, we're together. And they sent it back to me. And I was like, oh, snap. We're going to do all of these. I said, I'll send it to Mike. And if he doesn't like them, then he'll pick one. Then we'll do some on our own. Where does that come from, though? I guess to go to the deeper route, Mike, is that my team has to be like right there with me, because some of the things that we're doing, I just need I need to know that we're moving in the same direction, because the team has grown. It's just we have people not just in the Philippines, but people in South Africa, people here in America, people in Pakistan, and the team is just like growing. And so it's just very important that we all stay together. And so a lot of the work that has been done over the years has been done in the back room. And it gives me that confidence that we're able to we're able to represent. It's about knowing what the mission is. So I'm not sure if that's exactly what you were looking for, but that's how we got to where we are right now. And then from there, the title and the subject, I did the same thing that you've done. I took that, I was like, man, that's good. And then I put my research into it, and I come up with what part of that really represents me and how I want to
Let's
bring
jump
it
into
to the
that.
table.
Yeah, jump into that. That's what I really want to hear.
So think about this, right? I've been going through this journey, discovering my authentic identity, and I've arrived, right? I've arrived at my authentic identity. And it took me a few years because, number one, I didn't realize that I was not there. And that's a challenge. Many people across the world have no idea who they are, and they don't know that they don't know. So there's nothing to change. Just keep on living life. But for me, I needed to shed labels, own my own narrative, which, by the way, means owning also the narrative that was given to you. I know that may sound like an oxymoron, but or paradoxical, but it's true. At some point in time, you have to own the narrative that was given to you, whether you like it or not, because you lived that narrative. And
Let because I want stay right there because I definitely want you to. You said some things, and I got to slow it down because that's heavy. That part is heavy. Um, if we can just talk a little bit about how you got to this when you speak of on authenticity and even the narrative, we've defined the narrative because I want to define these words, right? I say the narrative is already out there. Like most of us don't necessarily have control of the narrative because, like you mentioned, by the time we get here, it's there, right? um However, we get a chance to explain our story and as a part of the narrative. But I want you to get into really jump into that owning the narrative piece because I think that's very, very important.
okay, that's not a problem. We can talk about that. So I've got a construct that you and I have created together, piecing together words. And it's an A construct, like an A ladder, right? And it begins with awareness. So, first step is becoming aware of the probably the greatest question you'll ever answer in your life. Who am I? Just becoming aware of that. And honestly, that's whether or not it doesn't matter if you become aware of who you are or you become aware of who you're not. Both of them are leading to the right individual. They're leading to you, the core you. This is a struggle that is happening amongst our kids exponentially right now because our young people are being fed so many different narratives and giving so many choices at a time when they don't have the capacity to make a reasonable decision. So they're jumping from identity to identity. Remember a time ago when I was a kid, you didn't have many choices. You had the kids that you hung around with and the family that you kept. That was it. Then maybe you had a little bit of TV that you can glean off of, the Fresh Prince of Bel Air or whatever. But parents were really, they really watched what you watched on TV. And when you got on that telephone, you could only walk with that cord so far away from the rest of the family. And you can only whisper so low. So the narrative that we were given in my days, as a child, it was limited. But the narrative of the children nowadays is not limited. It's without, this one scripture says, hell hath enlarged itself, right? It's without boundaries. So young people are identifying with things all over the place, and it becomes something that's much more difficult. Still, let's go back to the question. The first thing is awareness, becoming aware of who you are or who you're not. After that, you go into acknowledgement. Okay, this is what I am. Like I'm a man, or when I was a kid, I'm a boy, right? Or it could have been, I'm a black boy, whatever that was. And then accepting it. And there's a huge difference between acknowledging and accepting, because you can acknowledge something and never accept it. I don't care what you say. It ain't that, right? That type of thing. After that comes alignment. Then we move to advancement, which is when we began to make some moves. My alignment, I consider my alignment to be morals, values, and God. That's what it is for me. That's how I make my alignment. Morals, values, God. We can also put a couple other words in there like belief and principles. Those things do apply when I'm seeking out my alignment. And so this is something that came to me. Now, granted, Mike, to go a little bit deeper, I hit a point where I realized who I desired to be. It wasn't until years ago, a few years back, that I decided I wanted to refine this, right? Because I got to a point maybe 25 years ago where I was like, okay, I'm not going to be that guy because I don't like that guy. I'm going to be this guy, and I maintain that. But over 20 years, there began to be splinters, right? As I began to be cultivated by the world around me. And there's another scripture. I think it's Romans chapter 12, verse 2. Uh, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Be not conformed to this world. And so there was a conforming of the world. There's a world philosophy. There's a universe. Like I'm not the guy. I may have been the guy who would say the universe is conspiring to do you good, but I'm not that guy now. I'm authentically faith-driven in my faith, and you can say whatever you want about your faith. So like it's these dividing of these worlds that Mike was just talking about when he was quoting the gentleman. He was saying that words have worlds. And so it was me dividing the different worlds and choosing the world that I was going to live in, and then unapologetically walking in that life. And that's what I call my identity, right? That's how I got to it. And in doing that, I began to realize, okay, so when such and such happened when I was a kid, and I felt like, man, you shouldn't have done that. If you hadn't done that, I would have been insert new narrative, or I would have been insert new narrative, or I would have had this insert new narrative. Instead of blaming, I just went back and I said, okay, that is what it was because it is. And I began to acknowledge it and accept it. And that's what gave me the power to move forward. I'll give you one more small example of what that means. I just had a conversation with a young lady. Shout out to her, because and we talked about something, and she opened up the door, man. She opened up the door. She started talking about uh, how there was a breakdown inside of her family. I mean, she's spitting these words out. Words matter. She's spitting them out. Why do they matter? It's not just about how they affect the other person. It's about how they affect yourself. There's a reverb. And so that thing was affecting her. And me, I see it. I feel it. I can touch that thing. It was palpable. But she's not letting anybody in. She just wants to let this out. The issue with that is that sometimes when people get to that point where they just want to let it out, it's like a dog on a chain when they let it out. And that chain or that collar is bringing the dog back in the house. They're not letting go. They're just showing. They're just letting it show, not letting go. And so I could tell she's just letting it show. She wants to show me this is my pain. This is my struggle. This is an identity that you have identified with, and you have claimed that narrative as your own narrative, and you can't bypass it. Why? Because you chain that narrative up and you let it come out so you can show people what kind of vicious dog you have so that it can protect your abode. But at the end of the night, you bring the dog back in and it lives with you. That's the complexity of taking somebody else's narrative and keeping it without acknowledging that you do not have to live by it. And the only way that you can move through it is you have to accept that it was your narrative. Whatever that means, it is what it is. You got dealt a hand out of the deck of lives, of life. And that's the one that you played. It's over with. It's yesterday. So now you got to accept it. And you got to look into your own morals, your own values, what you say is important to you, your own principles, what Mike so eloquently just like broke down for like 10 weeks, 11 weeks. He gave us everything about principles and why he lives by it. You got to take all that stuff and you got to say, okay, this was my old narrative. I accept it. That's what made me who I am. Now I'm going to start writing my own book. I'm in charge now. I'm in the driver's seat. And that's what happened to me. I got to that point where I'm not even going to mention to y'all the biggest one that I had, because it's not even worth it. You can go back and look inside of all these videos and you'll find what I'm referring to, but I'm not even going to do it now. I rewrote that narrative. I've already accepted it. I'm good. I'm free. There's no need for me to go back and pull it up just to show you. If you want to see some of my old demons show up, you can go back and you can look inside of our videos. Find it for yourself. Maybe you'll find yourself while you're looking for me. All right, man. I gave a bunch there. What's up, man? Talk to me.
Come on, man. Come on, man. Where's the book? Man's Search for Meaning. Go check that book out. That's an awesome book. Very short read. I think it's Eli Wiesel, if I'm not mistaken. Awesome read. Where do we start? Because I really want to unpack it.
Is that how you gonna? That's how you gonna open up? You gonna open up with that comment right there? Where do we start?
I want to talk about, because it's very powerful. And you weaved a lot of different frameworks in it, and I have the ability to catch it. And man, shouts out to Chris as well, because Chris has been watching our videos and we've been having conversations in regards to it. He said he was saying last week Legacy. He was talking about that one, that show. So was it last week or the week before was Legacy?
We did 2 weeks of Legacy.
Okay. So he was speaking about last week because we spoke this week in regards to it. So there's a lot of frameworks that are weaved in, and it's for the people who are doing the work. We're able to catch it, and it becomes very simple because we've already done the work. If that makes sense. To a person just hearing this for the first time, which some of us are, it's like, okay, like where do I even start? And you actually broke it down, which was the awareness piece. The awareness piece is I need to become aware of it. The right or wrong of it is going to kind of get you topsy-turvy about it. It tends to complicate things to very intelligent people. I've seen very intelligent people, because of feelings and their judgmental side and that dog that you spoke of, this on the leash, their acceptance of this subconscious acceptance of this identity that they're just showing you, like, I got the biggest dog. That's what you said. Like, look how tough my dog is. You know what I mean? And then they put it back. And we've all experienced it. Someone who's attempting to out trauma you, right? Like you'll say, they say something happens, and then they'll say, well, let me tell you about me and my trauma. You know what I mean? Like, and it happens a lot. It often occurs. But the ability to become aware of it and then acknowledge it and then accept it for what it is, and then to be able to choose it, because you're choosing this whether you know you're choosing it or not, whether it's conscious to you or not, you've chosen something. I remember I was having a conversation with somebody, and they told me, they said, I'm a this. I'll tell you exact conversation. This is the things that I'm going through as a single mother. Okay. And I said, and that's what they wanted to be. And I'm like, okay, well, I didn't say anything because I'm not, and we'll get into this as we go along, because I want to talk about
that identification.
Yeah,
they identifying right there. You could hear it coming. You can see it coming.
You can hear it. And I said, oh. So when you do that, you're taking everything that comes with it. Everything that comes with that identification, it's coming with it. The words have worlds. You've chosen that world. There's a narrative to that. There's a world to that. There's consequences to that. There's benefits to it, whatever it is. I love Thomas Sowell. Thomas Sowell said there's no solution, only trade-offs. So as we pick our identities or we choose them, whether we choose them consciously or not, we are taking the trade-offs. We are taking what comes with it. And if that's how you want to live your life, that's fine. But like the brother said, the dog is on the chain. When you decide that you want to let it go and be free of those things, that's also a choice. Like I'm gonna choose this, and now kind of know what to expect of these certain things. I'm choosing at this point to be a man. What does that mean? I could totally understand when people decide not to be that, because there's a lot of weight and accountability that comes with that. There's when you look at it, the buck stops here. Do you know what that feels like when the buck stops here? Do you know what it feels like that I'm not going to go back and forth with certain things because I am going to be a man, or I'm going to be a woman, or I'm going to be something? Like, there's a lot that comes with it. So the belief that you choose, the faith the brother speaks about, the Most High, there's certain things that come with that. There's weight that comes with it. I'll go back to Dre. Dre, who spoke about words have worlds. He talks about the seasoning, the salting. Excuse me. He talks about the salting process. He's like, this is when you're being salted. And then the ability to be, because I don't think you quite become this thing until you go through this salting process, and you're like still in the salting process. So I'll give an example. I'm saying I'm a man. I'm saying the buck stops here, and then you get a phone call with something crazy that happened, right? And you kind of just want to, I could just hang up this phone right now and I don't have to deal with this. You know what I mean? Like, you could. But if you've made that decision, and while you go through the salting process, you just might put the phone down, because you still, and this is the lesson you're learning as you become this man. But then after a while, you get to it, and don't get me wrong, you still get this thing in the back of your mind, like, oh man, I wish I could put the phone down. But then the empowerment comes up with like, man, but I'm a man. It's a part of my duty. It's a part of my honor. I'm choosing it, and I'm going to choose it every time.
Come on now, talk.
I'm going to. That's when you're in your identity. There's a lot of wishy-washy things going on in the world. It's wishy-washy. Today I'm gonna do it. Tomorrow I'm not. Today it feels right. Tomorrow it doesn't feel right. Today it's a wishy-washy. When you choose an identity, this is how you're showing up. Here's the thing: you're choosing something. You're choosing something. There may be a disconnect though in what you believe it is and what you're actually expressing. And this is where we start to talk about the principles. The brothers spoke about his spiritual beliefs and all these, that type of stuff. This is when you start to think about what your alignment is, and you start to get this thing in alignment, and you start to get on track with this stuff, because it really goes to that. And no matter what it is that you choose or become, it's a perfect thing. I spoke a little bit on it last week, and I'm going to continue with it. You are perfect in your being. You're imperfect in an action, but in the being, it's going to come out. So that's why, and the intention of it kind of don't matter if the being is not what you think it is, right? Like, if you believe yourself to be one thing, but you're actually choosing something else, no matter what your intentions are, whether they positive, goodwill or whatever, it's going to be expressed in a certain kind of way. That's how you can say, well, I'm doing all the things I'm supposed to be doing. I'm going to, I'm going to church. I'm worshiping. I'm going to temple. I get up in the morning and I get on my knees and whatever. I'm doing these things. And it's really, when you get into it, it's like, well, I hear you doing it, but what's your being like? Because whatever life throws at you, if you're in that being, you can count it as joy, right? As I start to go up this ladder of joy, I was in love for a long time, but now it's like joy in certain things. What this means? This doesn't mean that I don't have anxiety about certain things. This doesn't mean that I'm not. I'm working on my posture too, to submission. It doesn't mean that I'm just like, again, you know what I mean? But it's just getting to the point of where it's just like, oh, I get to do this.
There it is. That's good.
We breaking it down. Let's talk about our background, and I'll start first. That way it can prompt the brother and he can put his thoughts together.
Well, let me hit off what you
brother.
said, man. Because when you said you choose what you do, that's heavy, y'all. That's heavy. I was talking with my daughter just a few days ago, and I posed a situation for her to hear what she had to say. A heavy situation, very heavy. A situation current that depending on the decision, it would have an effect on her life. And she said this to me. I'm checking in, bro. I'm checking in, man. I'm checking in. Checking in with everybody. Because I'm making a decision right now in my life. Making a decision in my life. And the decision I'm making in my life will have an effect on my household. Period. It's going to have an effect. One way or the other, it's going to have an effect. And it's not even that I'm making a decision, it's that I've made a decision. But I didn't check in with everybody. Checked in with my wife. She's like, hey, I got your back. But I didn't check in with my daughter or my son. So I'm coming home and I'm like, hey, listen, I want to have a short conversation with you, but it should be long. But it was short. And I said, if I were to do X, Y, Z, because I don't want to go deep into it, because it's very relevant at this moment. Tell you offline. If I were to do X, Y, Z, and that left you in this type of position, what would you say? That young lady turned around and didn't even think about herself. And she said, what you don't change, you choose.
Mm.
I said, say that again. She said, what you don't change, you choose. She said, to obtain something of equal value must be lost. It's the first rule, the first law of alchemy. And then she started to give examples. And I looked at her, and I'll tell you, I thought about it, y'all. I thought about it, I'm like, this is my daughter. The things that she's talking about, these are things that I spoke with her about. I didn't use that terminology. I haven't studied alchemy as of now. I'm thinking about it after that because I love that quote. But I'm listening to her. I'm like, good God. And she started talking about some other things about being happy. Brother, you were just talking about joy. I believe that's what she really was referring to. Happy and joy is interchanged many times, but those were her words. She said happy. And then at the very end, she acknowledged she'll be all right. Don't put that weight on me. You make the decision because you deserve to be happy. I'm sure God will take care of us. I'm sure God will take care of me. That's not the concern here. So when you said to choose what you do, that's when that thing just queued this thought up. And I was like, I got to share this because somebody out there may be listening just for that right there. Well, you don't change, you choose. So if you don't choose to change the narrative in your mind, you have chosen it. And Mike, that's what Mike just said. He said, you are making a choice, whether you know it or not. So I'm going to put it to you this way. If you don't choose to change the thing that is hurting you, you are choosing to keep the thing that is hurting you, period. By default, you will have no change in your life. And you'll wonder about your struggle forever. And Mike, I'm gonna throw it back in your direction after I lay this one acknowledgement to one of our previous conversations. You were asking me, much like you do, to get more information about the history of my change. And I spoke to you and I stated, as we were reminiscent about what we would go back and do if we could talk to the younger Mike and Joel. And I stated, I don't know that there's anything I would change in the past, but one thing that I'm doing today is I'm saying yes. Because for 20 years, I said, no, I won't do. No, I can't do. No, I'm afraid to do. No. And I limited myself to a limited belief. And I didn't necessarily accept it, but I blamed everything for me not being able to do anything. And it wasn't until I got into this life, this mind, that I began to understand what I don't change, I chose. And in the last 12 months, I've been to 3 other countries in the last 12 months. I didn't even know you could visit another country. I thought that was only for the mega rich. A little black boy from the streets of Gum Springs apartment, Alexandria, could never hop on a plane. And I took a first class flight. So I'm choosing my change. And I hope that somebody else is choosing their change too, and not allowing for the circumstances of your life and of your world to continue to press on you like a hot iron on a shirt on a Sunday morning. You don't need to be starched. You just need to get up and go.
Listen, you know, my saying is another day, another way.
Yeah.
Meaning that if yesterday what you chose didn't end up being for you, you can make that decision. You can always make that decision. And brother, definitely appreciate and acknowledge. I've seen it. This is interesting because I get a chance to like bear witness. We got to think. We've been doing Community Beacon going on 5 years now, 4 or 5 years. We started late 2020 or maybe early 2021, right around there.
Late 2020, November, December.
And here we are, late 2025 as we roll up on 5 years. So to be able to see this, and it doesn't start off the salting process. I'm gonna get back to it, man, because Dre gonna teach you some stuff, and we'll get into his cultural stuff, but the salting process, and it's you know, most of us are aligned in Christianity. Most of us, how we came up, right? So we're talking about the salting, you know, this being the salt of earth and being, I say the seasoning, like being seasoned. And it's not just I've arrived kind of thing, right? Like when you get there, it is. when you get there and to look back, you're like, oh, you know. There's times when, and I love Beethoven for this, because I'm like, man, we really need to write some of this stuff down that happens on a day-to-day basis. Because there was one conversation where he actually, there was a car accident. Somebody was in it. He put the person, it was him and some friends, they put the person in the back of the car, and drove them to the hospital. This person died in the back of the car. Right before they got to the hospital. And then when he tells the story, it's almost like matter of factly, like, you know, this just happened yesterday. And you're like, wait a minute, what? You know, but when you start to go through a lot of and that's an extreme, but when you start this salting process, when you start to become seasoned and you're actually experiencing these things, there's so much that happens. And there's times when it's just like, I don't even know. You know, but I'm gonna do it anyways. That is essentially the kind of the process you got to have in your mind. And now here you are 5 years later, and I implore people to actually go back and look at those older episodes, right? A lot of the stuff we've already talked about, and we've opened up our minds to say, oh, we've gotten new information. The impact of words, man. Because I wanted to talk about how we get to expand the type of words we use, but most of us don't even necessarily need to expand at this time. We need to become aware and acknowledge the words that we are using that put us where we are. What identity, and this will give you hints on the identity that you've chosen, because some of us that, like, we don't know. Like you said something earlier, brother. You say what I choose is just as relevant as what I decide not to choose, right? So we start to see some things and we start to say, okay, I'm not choosing that anymore, right? We start to shed things, but we start to use our common gavel, so to speak, if you hear me, to kind of,
rough edges.
Yeah, smooth off the rough edges, and start to see exactly what it is. I'll give a quick background. We're getting back to words and the power of speech, because I come up like most people within this environment, right? In the growing up in the South, I was born in Jersey, but grew up in the South amongst Caribbean parents. I remember the first time that I actually became aware of how I spoke and expressed myself to people. And Tanisha Baker, shout out to Tanisha. She said, she actually brought it to my attention, because most people just wouldn't tell me. She was like, yeah, you said it, but the way you said it. I said, the way I said it. What difference do it make the way I said it?
I know what you're talking about. I met Mike in a raw form.
He did. Absolutely. I just come out as it, because to me, it was my truth. I wasn't making no qualms about it. This is how it go. And I would expect people to do the same to me, right? But I was treating people how I wanted to be treated, and there's certain ways. I decided that this wasn't effective. So it came to my realization that, okay, this is an effective communication, because I can say it, and the words that I choose to say it with aren't going to elicit, a response, right? Especially when I'm in a supervisory position, I'm asking you to do something, but the way I say it, it has something attached to it. The world I was creating wasn't a good world, right? So that led me back to Toastmasters back in like 2010, 2011. And I did Toastmasters for a decade. And I always tell people, like, listen, go check out Toastmasters, right? Because a part of how we see things is defined upon like the culture that we came up in, the environments that we came up in. Certain things are effective in certain environments that they aren't in the other environments. You can go to certain places and being loud and aggressive is going to take you places. Mm-hmm. You can take that same loud and aggressiveness someplace else, and you might end up in jail. Mm-hmm. You might end up, doors might be closed. There's that saying, you can catch more flies with honey than you can with vinegar.
Right.
There is a time and places for these different things, right? So I learned that, and I'm telling you, people, it probably was, I think at the time it was maybe $200 a year for Toastmasters. I was working at the city. One of the best investments I could ever have, the biggest return on investment I could ever have was joining that organization, and not necessarily seeking anything, because there are some people in Toastmasters, they're just looking to get something, you know what I mean? But if you're going in there actually to understand and to expose yourself to different ways of thinking, different cultures, how they speak, what the decorum is like, so on and so forth, it was just mind-blowing. And everybody that I recommended to Toastmasters that attended it for any amount of time, and there's a lot of people, and most of them actually ended up becoming, like, I became president of my Toastmaster club at one point in time. A lot of them became presidents of their Toastmasters. Shout out to Chris, people doing the work. Shout out to my other cousin, Devin Buchanan. He's over there with the Oakland Raiders, organized, or not Oakland, excuse me. They're the Las Vegas Raiders now. Doing mental health for football. And I can go on and on and on about people who joined Toastmasters and saw, because you're used to your world and how we speak. and the environment that we came up in. But if you want to go to the next level, you have to expose yourself and you have to be open. The brother talked about this limited belief. This limited belief comes from the identity that we've chosen for ourselves. We can't just at first, I can't, looking back now, I can say, okay, I can see exactly my being at the time. But when I was in that place, I didn't know what this identity was. I thought it was just normal and natural. This is just the way it is, until I went to these places and exposed myself. I exposed myself to these different things. Shout out to Ed Lamont, who I call the godfather, the modern godfather of South Florida Toastmasters.
Toastmasters,
yeah. Ed runs about 3 or 4 clubs. He's one of the head guides at the Flagler Museum and the Breakers Hotel, so on and so forth. Does a lot of stuff in regards to the history of Palm Beach, at the Society of the Arts, so on and so forth. But just listening to him and how he talks, right? And Richard Hartman is another one. Maritza Cascarelli. Like you go into these places and you listen and you're like, and with an open mind and say, oh, this is interesting. And it's not easy at first, right? Because I grew up and my style has developed, but I grew up in the church. So at first I and they would always say, oh, you're like a pastor, and you. No, that's just the way we saw people talk. So we start to develop it that way because this is what we see. And at times for me, it was like, and I understand it, and it could be performative. So it was hopeful, it was preachy, and that's the way, that's kind of like how I started. Over time, like Joel mentioned earlier, was like all of a sudden it started to become more authentic and aligned. I got it written right here. That's interesting because the brother just said that. And less about performance and more about truth. And over time it became, and Joel's seen this probably, right? Because he knew me back in 2011, 10. It became more inquisitive. It became more deliberate. Not about impressing. And guys, I could put some stuff together. I could put a speech together. I'm gonna tell you now.
Yes, you can.
I should have brought my awards. I won plenty of awards in Toastmasters because I understand how to put a speech together, because I understand what the crowd wants. But however, over time, it was like, okay, I'm speaking to clarify something, because it's not enough for me, how I'm aligned, for me just to drop advice and information, because I know people they're not going to do half the stuff that I'm talking about. Hey, there's a lot of us watching right now, and we're going to watch the replay of this and not going to do something as simple as going and visiting a Toastmasters. I understand that. It's a part of the process of becoming authentic and aligned. There's not many people who are willing, you'll notice, that are going to put in the work, because there is work attached to it.
Yes.
There's work attached to it. Then and then what you do is you get, like, there's a reason why I'm so deliberate in the time that I spend with people. Like me and the brother are every week for an hour, and he'll go into his side of it, but I just want to talk a little bit about it, is because I looked at a brother and I said, whoa. It's something special about this brother. We can, people I'm around, they can speak, we can talk, and we can have these conversations. And, one thing you're always going to find in our community is some speaking people like that.
I felt like you were about to say something else.
I don't want to get us canceled, You're going to find some very charismatic individuals. We are taught to, in our community, we're taught to, and we're actually guided in this way that if you want certain things, you have to be able to talk your way into it, right? And some of us are really good at it, right? Talk our way into things, we talk our way out of things, kind of deal. Like that happens a lot, and there's performance. There's no shortage of eloquent speakers.
Mm.
The brother, though, has a way of listening, empathetically listening, right? So when you go and talk to him, because you're not going to find you're not going to find a lot of. Everyone's trying to outsmart you and trying to give you more information than you already know, and whatever. Everyone's trying to outdo you. The master teacher Neely Fuller spoke about that a lot. Like everyone's trying to give you how much they know. You're going to find in the minority the amount of people who are not just listening, but empathetically listening to you, that are able to come back and show you, be a mirror of yourself. Because the brother spoke about words as well. The words aren't, you need to pay attention to what the words are saying to yourself. The reverb is what is the word that you use, brother. The reverb that's happening, to use your word. And if I understand it correctly, it's like how it's coming back to you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like how are you placing yourself? When you have a masterful listener, and Toastmasters did this for me as well. You went learning how to speak or talk. And what I found was you got to get your own voice. And more importantly, you were able to listen. Those evaluations are serious. And though they become more, over time, you start to put more weight on the evaluations than anything else as far as your role in the meeting. And the brother naturally had that. And I wouldn't even say, I would say naturally, but I know you've had practice with it, right? You've had practice with it. I don't know whether you developed it, I don't necessarily know if you were born with it, but you've developed it, right? At this point, and on a high level. And
appreciate it.
Yeah, brother. So this is like the style. This is, I'm just talking about my style evolution, how it started, just like everybody else, and then getting to where we are now. And not only that, is that it taught me, because at one point in time it was like this code switching thing. I heard that word a lot. I hear that word a lot in the community. Oh, well, we got a code switch. You out of here?
Yeah, he's at the gate.
All right, I'm gonna let him in.
Have a good one now. All right, nephew.
Tell him to call again. I didn't get it. Oh, there it is. Hold on. Give me a second, brother. Go ahead.
All right. Yeah, just touching base on that reverb and going back over that. It's just words have a way of lingering in the air. And when they do, they settle on people, person, places, and self. That's what ends up happening. That's what I mean by reverb. That's what I mean by reverb. So this is interesting. Now we've gone a little bit long in this conversation tonight, but I think it's well worth it. I mean, seeing where we've come from, because these used to be conversations that they were random at best. Hey, what's up, Mike? Hey, man, I'm doing good. And before you know it, conversation would take a left turn or a right turn, and neither one of us would be willing to step out of the vehicle that was taking us to a destination. And so left or right turn, there was no wrong turns. And our conversation would just progress and progress and progress. That's actually the thing that really, I feel like that really brought us in tight and close. Communication is so powerful because those you communicate with, you feel an attachment to. So if you're not communicating with people, you're going to feel a detachment, or you're not going to feel an attachment, which does not mean that you are detached either. It just means that you have never taken the opportunity to attach yourself. Communication does that. I don't know if you all remember, if you go back, you'll look in some of the very, very earlier versions when we started talking about the C's in a relationship, and one of them was communication. Communication has power to attach itself one to the next. We're attached through communication. There's many other ways that we're attached, but communication brings people together. When I speak and you don't listen, there's no attachment. When you speak and I don't listen, there's no attachment. But when you speak and I am able to come back, whether in agreement or disagreement, in a way, shape, or form that makes you want to continue to speak with me, there's an attachment. That's what the power of communication can do for people. And that, Mike, I was just talking about where we stepped in, how I believe that we really started to become closer and closer was because of these phone calls that we began to have, and in the beginning we were kind of at odds a little bit, and then we started to, I don't even remember what it was that brought us in tight. And then, and it may have just been the process or whatever. I don't really know what it was, but something just clicked and changed. But then there was this communication that continued to happen post event. And for me, my communication with you was even greater than it was with some of the other brothers who my communication was better with while we were going through the process, which was strange. It was like I was close in communication with this guy. And then in the end, I became very close in communication with you. And so relationships began to develop. And I was just explaining how communication is a very, very big proponent of developing a good and strong relationship. So that's one of the powers of communication, is that it can build relationships, which is a reflection of how we started this off with networking and young guys just going in and throwing cards down and just being like, you have to do business with me because I have a business card. And that just goes to show you, when you got communication and families, friends, whoever, and they just throwing stuff down with expectancy that you're supposed to pick it up and do for them, and you have not communicated, you have not connected. Now you understand why. You have no power in that relationship.
Communication rules the nation. I remember that. That was a verse. I think Kendrick Lamar said it, but it's been said prior to, but he wasn't the first one to say it. The card thing, you also dropped the gem earlier on. When you brought up card again, I think I love what you said earlier on, and I'm like, yeah, that was fire. Was when we speak about our identities, you say life handed you a bunch of cards and you pick this one out. And right, like this, so that's important. And now when we'll get into this over the next 12 weeks. I think, and maybe the episode, certain episodes will be longer than other episodes because there's a lot to it, right? Well, we're gonna make this very simple. I think we pretty much did make it simple within this episode, but as we go on, we're going to get more in depth on each thing. One thing is being that you just mentioned you put the card down and a family member picks it up and so on and so forth. So we can start talking about what it looks like to have effective communication. We can talk all day.
That's good.
We could talk all day. We can talk about we're going to talk about effective communication. One of the biggest things, and I learned this from the brother, he's so great with it, is clarifying questions. If you want to get to the truth, you got to clarify. Me asking some simple clarifying questions that I know now would have saved a lot of relationships in the past. Not only that, but everything happens the way it's supposed to happen. So I'm not regretting it at all. One thing the brother had in the thing that's important too, and it might be an episode by itself. It might be the funniest episode. It's silence.
Yeah.
we might not say nothing for an hour and just look at each other.
I don't believe that one. I can't help but to talk to my bro when I get on this thing, man. Because I'll be waiting for this all week long. This is one of those events where I'm sad when I miss it, you know?
Come on. I appreciate it, brother, but it's important. The silence is important. I'm teaching my son right now, you know, because he like to fire back. He's Mike number 2. You just saw him come in there a second ago. He's me number 2. Paul is me number 3. Right, so I
might be you number 1. You might have to move down.
I said to Elijah, I say Elijah, listen, 5-second pause, and I'm telling him, but I'm really talking to myself as well. Yeah. Like before, but once going back to the words have worlds, and we understand the impact of what it is that we say. It almost makes me feel like we don't take ourselves seriously.
Dive into that just a little bit. I know we've been going long.
No.
Dive into your thought process and your understanding of words have worlds.
I don't want to complicate it, and I also don't want to talk over people's heads. There is things going on out here. The brother know the Bible verse better than me, and the verse talks about that we don't war against
flesh and blood,
but principalities and powers. Right? I'm butchering it, but you understand. You can go find it. I'm sure. So when we and we're talking about the tongue. So what comes out of it, right? Things that we hold on to deep inside, right? What a man thinketh, right? And we can get it. It's so much in our. You can tell when someone has disdain for you. They can't help it. It's gonna come out once you get to talking. And if you understand that words have worlds, and you start to become inquisitive in nature, and you start to actually listen. Right, and not trying to talk over. You could start to see certain things that don't have your best interest in mind, if that makes sense. It's a powerful thing. These words. So this thing is happening. We're just talking just to talk. How's the weather? I heard someone say once. Whenever somebody starts talking about how's the weather, clutch your wallet. How's the weather or what's the time? Just hold on to your wallet because something's going on, right? You know how the weather is. We both out here alike, right? And don't get me wrong, there's a time and place for things like, I go in the sauna and I say, man, it feels like a sauna in here. You know what I mean? But you're making jokes, so on and so forth. And you want to open up a conversation. I get that, right? And there's nuances to these things. But I really observe the rules and then I break them late. I can break them later. Before I break a rule, I got to observe it. I got to observe what's this about. But the word, so there's every rule. So what are we speaking? The power of life and death. This is in the book.
Woo, go ahead, man. That was one of my quotes for tonight.
I mean, but this is in the book. And I know the respect that everyone has for the book. The power of life and death is in the tongue. Just that alone. I gave you the first one about what we wrestle against. So that means that we're not even aware of it because it had to be brought to our attention. That, hey, it's not just me and you having this conversation, right? It's not just me and somebody else having this conversation. There's principalities and such involved. Now, when you go into an environment and you don't understand or know that these things are happening, then you don't really understand what's going on in these environments. You're just there. And there's certain things that can be said that are either opening or closing doors for you right then and there. Your mouth betrays you. Like your mouth can betray you. because you're saying stuff. If you notice what I do, I go in environments and I'm observing and I'm having conversations, yeah, but I'm also observing. And then the clarifying question, well, what do you mean by that? Because what does Mike want to do? Well, it goes to the first principle. I want to get to the truth of the matter. Sometimes, and I admit it ends up being a lot more serious than it could be, but I'll find that out. I'm like, oh, okay, it's not as serious, but I need to observe it first because it might be, right? So I go in there, and then what I say next is going to make a difference. So you go into these different environments and you gauge and you have these exchanges, and the type of things that you say are opening and they're closing doors for you. This is happening all the time. I have practice in it, so it's just like I'm just, it comes a little bit easier. But at first, it's like it can be draining because you're like, is everything this way? Unfortunately, you chose to be a man, so it is, right? You accepted a certain narrative, so or you're changing this narrative. This is your story, so it is, or maybe it's not. I get to find out. But once again, you start to have joy in it. Right, but that's the word. So now when we start to have these words, because you have some people who are very adept at it, brother. You have a mentor, the bishop of your church, and I think he passed. Was it last year or the year before last?
Last year. That'll be Bailey. 2 years ago.
So he passed, and so I attended a convocation with you once, right? For the uninitiated, so to speak, he's up there and he's saying things, right? And you've even given me some of his tapes or CDs, etc. If I'm uninitiated and I don't really understand about the different worlds that words have, you can miss everything. You can go in there and you could just think it's just about one thing, and there's a lot of things happening on different levels. There's different things that are happening. And so this is happening all the time as well. I'm just bringing this example because me and the brother I was at this brother's at the convocation. So these things are happening, and you can understand the frequencies that are happening, and everybody's not vibrating on the same frequency. There's some people on certain frequencies, there's certain people on certain frequencies, but the powerful things are happening. And if you're not in tune with these things, you can miss it. That might have been the simplest explanation. If you're not in tune with these different worlds and these words that are happening, you can just be missing these things. Your easiest way out. He sat there and he listened to your cousin. I'm not sure exactly how that conversation ended, but you were in tune with the words she was saying, even if she may not necessarily have been in tune with it. You were seeing it. You're like, oh, whoa. Okay, you're letting this dog on this chain out, right? But things are happening, and you're speaking this. Did I answer your question?
You did, man. You did. When you answered the question to me was when you said things you are saying are opening and closing doors. I was like, that's it right there. Things that you are saying are opening and closing doors. That was powerful, because it's like when you start to think about words having worlds, to me, in my mind, it means that there's something deeper inside of that word. And then you say your words are opening and shutting doors. They're opening and closing doors. It's like we may not understand it, but what's going on when we say something, somebody else's mind is opening up to something else. And if we're not cautious, they can be opening up to something against us, with us, for us. They can misread us. Many times politicians and other people of influence will say certain things, and followers will go out and do something else. and the politicians may get blamed for it.
Yep. Happens.
It happens, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the thing is like, so the question is, did they say it on purpose? Did they do it on purpose? When they said this one word, did it excite violence on purpose? When they said this one thing, did people gather together in humble prayer on purpose? Because no matter what it is, when we begin speaking, people will begin thinking. And they're going to think what they want to think because they're in their own world. So the words that we have are keys. That's why I like when you said they're opening and shutting. They're keys. Words are keys. There's power inside that word. There are keys. They're opening up somebody's mind to something maybe they've never been exposed to. Or they're shutting their mind down. Parents that don't have an understanding on how to raise their child are telling their children, oh, don't believe in so-and-so, such and such, because, he ain't never been nothing, nobody, nowhere, never how. Or she ain't no good, I'm going to tell you about. And the thing is, that child is like, oh, my daddy ain't no good. Oh, my mama ain't no good. And that parent has opened up their world of thinking, or they shut it down, close that door. And as we get older, people who are oblivious to what they are saying are doing it accidentally. They don't even know that they're doing it. Or like you said, bro, they are willfully ignorant. And they are willfully doing this ignorantly because what you don't change, you choose. We linking these words together now, precept on precept, right? And so then there's others who have come to the acknowledgement and the acceptance that what they say does make a difference. They have aligned their words with their viewpoint, their values, their morals, their belief, their principles, their God. They've aligned their words. And so now they're using their words as salt. Like the scripture says, let your words be seasoned with salt. In other words, seasoned with grace. So that when people hear what you are saying, they can benefit. And I wish that everybody just thought that way. Like we could all be affecting each other in a way that benefits people to grow and to love and to, how beautiful would the world be if people chose their words wisely? And so that's why I wanted you to dive into the words have worlds. Either my mom or my grandmother used to say something like, you're going to get into a world of trouble. Boy, that means shut your mouth. Stop talking. Don't say anything else, because all you are doing is you are angering your mama, your grandmama, and you're going to wake up asleep in bed and they're going to whoop you till tomorrow. Be quiet, please. Right? And it's like you had to learn that when you were younger. Sometimes you just got to zip the lips. Don't say nothing because you don't know how to say anything right. You don't know what's right. You don't know what's wrong. So shut up.
That comes with the silence episode that
we had to say that one.
We get to talk about that in the silence episode where sometimes and I'm telling you, you start to understand these different frameworks. You get a different level of understanding. You start to become inquisitive. One of the things I practice is the 80-20 rule. Like if 80%, and it's interesting because some of these programs do it. When I'm on a sales call, 80% of the time, the prospect should be talking. I got 20%. 10% of the time, I'm gonna tell you what it is that I do and who I am. If you choose, that's a part of it, the expectations, so on and so forth. The majority of the time is asking questions. That's why they're talking for 80% of the time. And it can show you that. And if it's a 50-50 thing, I guarantee you something's going to be off in that call. If it's 50% or below, you were doing most of the talking. You're trying to do something else, right? You're not meeting them where they're at. You're trying to put them in a place. And even if you do make it, they may more than likely they're not going to be repeat because they're going to miss something with all this talking. You already have all this knowledge. I'm in real estate. I can real estate you to death. I could tell you about, how many townhomes or residences are in Palm Beach Gardens. I can tell you about the median price. I can tell you about this. What people say, well, what that got to do with me?
Yeah.
How is that affecting my pockets? How is it going to work with my timeline? So on and so forth. You spoke about being willfully ignorant. That was one of the first things, and it sounds bad, but it's going to help you out because once you understand that people are not only have they chosen an identity, but they're vested in it, it's going to save you a lot of trouble with the conversation. You can immediately understand what to expect from a person based upon the identity that they have, and especially if they're closed-minded. Once that happens, I with my dad, I tell him all the time, I say, I just do this for sport, right? We grew up in a place where you argue with each other. Like I see it, they go down to they'll go to the shop, him and his brothers get around each other, my uncles, and they just start to go on blah, 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 blah. And it's just back and forth, and it's for sport, right? That's just how they do it. And it's enjoyable to them. That's just the way they do it. So when I notice that, I'm just like, okay, well, I'm just doing it for sport. Like I know this. I know that I'm not, no matter what information I'm attempting to give to you, it's going to be it's disingenuous because you already have your mind fixed a certain kind of way. Yeah. What are some things that you don't argue with people about? I'm telling you right now, politics, don't do it. There's nothing unless you're doing it for sport. But no, that's one of the things I want to talk about with communication. What is the result? What do I want the result of this communication to be? Be clear on your purpose. I heard a rabbi say once, he says, I don't have conversations, I'm not being sexist, it's just what he said, this is his culture, with the opposite sex, just for no reason. Like men don't do that for any reason. Like you start to come up with things to say. There's really no purpose to this conversation. And you got to be wary of that. This is going to keep you out of a lot of trouble for a lot of people. Right? Good. You don't know what you're invited, but and it's not just the opposite sex. It should just be for everybody is what I say. What am I having this conversation for? Okay. What is this? Oh, am I trying to get information? Is this person's trying to give me information? What do I hope to accomplish? Right. And it could be something like it doesn't even matter what it is as long as you know what it is. But this just keeps you because, like I said, it could be for sport. I know I'm gonna bother my father because I'm his son and I'm put on this earth to bother him a little bit. Right. That's part of
that's your narrative right there.
One of my duties and my responsibilities.
Is that his narrative? Is that his narrative?
I know he has fun doing it. It's a connection, right? It's connection. I do know when we're taking it too far though, so you got to be aware of that. So I had to become aware of that. Like, all right, now you're taking it too far, or he's taking it too far. So I start to say stuff. I'll say, so are you trolling me right now? But this is the part. So I know it's a sport. When I go hang out with my uncle,
you got a lot of love on Instagram for that one right there, brother. They loving that one right there.
When I go hang out with my uncles and my father, it's a sport. So now I have to play the devil's advocate. Like this is a part of this identity that I'm choosing, and this brings us closer together. But I know what it is, and that's what we're engaging in. So understand what's about this argument or conversation or whatever the communication. What exactly is going on? What's the point of this communication? Is it that we're having? You know what I mean? And then you can start to you can really get inquisitive about this stuff. Like you really can start to understand the mindset of someone else when you start to ask questions like, oh, okay, well, what's that about? Well, how'd you come up with that? Okay, well, what's going on here? And it just becomes a part of, and you start to see like you start to really truly see people past just the surface thing, right? Because even the conversation, I'm bringing it up because you brought it up earlier, so we don't know the details of it, but you were having a conversation prior, and you noticed when this, the quote unquote dog was coming out, or was being shown that was on a leash, right? And so now you can get even more inquisitive about it, because you can say in your mind, I want to get to the crux of the situation. You know what? Right now is not the time for it, because I see the dog is out. It's on the leash. It's ready to go back. This is not the time. I always tell people, "Hey, how long should I go see a counselor for?" It could be one day if you were open to it, really. If you were really open for someone to explain to you what this expression is like. There's not that many, like, there's certain archetypes. Like, the stories may change, have slight nuances to it, but it's kind of repeatable. I'm sure you've noticed it. You're like, what? Okay, I see where we're going with this.
Yeah.
I'm going to clarify to make sure, right? That as a professional, you're going to do that. I'm going to clarify to make sure that this is where it is. But oftentimes, 90% of the time, you're just like, yeah, this is the same thing. And then now it's just like, how open are they?
Yeah.
Okay, this is how open they are. Okay, so I need to approach it by asking them this question, because they got to see it. The brother's done it to me. And sometimes I had to go sit in a corner for 3 days.
God.
And say, hey,
and he just mentioned trolling. Gosh.
I had to go sit for 2 weeks and 3 weeks, or now it's a week, but at least a week. And I'm like, why he asked me that question? Like, why did he ask me that question? What? There's something about that question. It's a reason, right? There's a deliberate reason why he's asking me this. What is it about? I'll bring up the exact example. You said, the brother said, brother, sometimes
man got a memory like an iron box.
Yeah, brother, sometimes, people are talking, and the face just isn't pleasant all the time. He said something to this. He said it better than me. I'm not saying it as eloquently as he did. And he says, because something about smiling, and he's telling me about how smiling opens up doors, or showing it. Like he understood my intention with what I was saying, but he was saying like, well, why are your faces made up in that kind of way? That's essentially what it was. That's essentially what it was, right? And now, so this is him improving on my communication, because it's like he's telling me, brother, I know you have good intentions. I'm not a fan of intentions. Forget intentions, brother. I know you're a good person. And he said at times, he said, personally, I know when I come to you and get information from you, or seek your counsel, I know you're going to give it to me straight up, and it's not anything attached to it. You're not trying to sell me something or whatever it is. Like, you're going to speak from the information that you know. And I understand that, because I understand you. However, when you're on a public platform and you're and you choose to, your words may look inconsistent with you because of the way that you're presenting, you're expressing it in a certain kind of way. I'm not asking you to change anything. I'm just asking you to take a look at it. Right? So it took me 2-3 weeks to wrestle with that. And this goes to the code switching, and I'm hoping that we have a episode on that, or at least we'll dive deeper into the code switching portion of it. We often feel dejected because we've come up a certain way and expressed ourselves in a certain way, and we speak in a certain kind of way. And then we go to a different level, right? we go to a different level, a different world. And we speak a certain kind of way. And some of us resent that. And so we started looking at code switching with a negative connotation. When you reframe that and say, it's not about not being yourself, it's more about connecting. The brother spoke about connection, connecting with the people that I'm speaking with. It's about having effective communication. It's about maturity, maturing in a kind of way. It's about presenting this information for the good of the group and the people who may not necessarily understand the genius involved, because the narrative tells us that there's not much genius there. I'm gonna tell you the sidebar. Twitter is the most racist place in the world.
We on a roll tonight.
You think you've encountered racism in your life? Maybe the silent generation, and maybe even some baby boomers. I would give credence to. But Generation X, millennials, and all that, you're going to
facts.
You go to Twitter.
100%. You got agreement over there.
You go to Twitter. You're going to see some things that you like. What? They've come up with new phrases and statements that take it to a whole different level, brother. But okay, I digress. This is the.
I don't know if I'll be able to recover from this.
I'm gonna bring us back in.
All right.
This is the narrative, right? And I say the biggest enemy that most of us have to, or there's two. There's ignorance is number one. Number two is the narrative.
All the time.
Right.
All the time.
Ignorance, every day you get up, your fight is going to be against ignorance, not other people's, your own. And number two is this narrative that's out there, because there's a story that's being told before you even step into the room. Who better than to change that, if we want to change the narrative, or be in control of it, right? That's what we want. We want to be in control of our narrative, right? Because things change and we make adjustments as human beings. Who better to do that than this person that can come in, and we want to communicate and we want to connect in a mature way with people who may not necessarily, they've heard about us, but now they're having a direct experience with us. If you want something to change, why not be that change you want to see? Oh, that's gone. Be that change you want to see in the world. That's now right. The brother has been to 3 countries in the past 12 months, right? He's going out with this narrative that takes place on Twitter. I'm telling you, that they're talking about on Twitter. But when they come into contact with this thing, with this person, he said, the real McCoy, right? What's really going on? What's really the identity you placed upon him may be black male from America, and now you come into contact with it. Whoa, this is not what I expected. This is something. Like, is this observable? Is this what it is? Yeah. And there's 20, 30, 40. There's many more like us. This is who you are. You become this change to the narrative. So when they see you, they're seeing this light, because essentially the narrative, if you're not in control of it, is just darkness. It could be. They not necessarily have to be. It could be that. But now you're starting to see it and you're having this experience. And I let people know. I let people know that, like, this is happening. Oh, you're a good. This is the normal. This is our normal. Me and Joe, we're up here talking. We're not putting on. You may start off as a perform whatever, but over time, once you start to get into alignment and you become your authentic self, this is the normal people. This is how we go around. Go ask them. My enemy's gonna tell you it's the same way. But the young people call it your ops. My ops gonna say the same thing.
Okay.
A person that doesn't align with my spiritual beliefs, they're gonna say the same thing. They may not necessarily, I don't necessarily align with what you got to say or in your spirit or whatever, but hey, that's what can I say about them? Joel will walk in, somebody may not be of the same denomination or whatever, but they say, boy, that's a good brother. He talk about this, I don't, but as far as the product, as far as the fruit, I represent that. We come from good trees.
Yeah, that is. Let me jump in on that.
Jump in.
We come from good trees. If you don't come from a good tree, there comes a time in your life, if you don't come from what you believe is not a good tree, there comes a time in your life when you get to pick what you become. So there's no excuses for anybody. Nobody gets a pass. Nobody at all. Only Noel, me and Jonah said hi. Oh man, that's Eli. That's Elijah. I was wondering who that was. Oh man, I forgot that's his code. Now I'm like only Noel, but now I'm looking at it, it says only no Eli.
Yeah, Eli. Yeah.
So him and Jonah are together at the quinceañera practice, and they said hi. What's up, fellas?
That's our sons out there. So for context, for people that don't know, those are our eldest sons that are participating in the quinceañera, and they're jumping on the live. I told Elijah, I said, we dropping gems all day. You need to jump in. You can't say that I didn't tell you.
That's dope, man.
Yeah,
That's
man.
Crazy. That was one of the reasons when we first started. That was one of your reasons why we did this. It was one of the main things that you wanted. You wanted to have something documented for your children. And I thought that's always been dope because we have been intentionally building our children. And that wasn't something that, I'm going to tell you, I think that I have always been that way because of my narrative, my old narrative. And I did it almost out of spite and love. Because my old narrative.
Yeah, unpack that.
My old narrative led me down the pathway of victim. That's how I felt. Victim. Oh man, such and such and such. You know, you wasn't here for this. You wasn't here for that. If it hadn't been the same stuff that I was talking to you about earlier about it when we were talking about an hour ago, before Elijah went off to the quinceañera and met with Jonah, right? And it was through watching these children grow that they helped me reshape my world. People don't realize that everybody has power. We all got power. My son and I, we like that movie, that Spider-Man, the cartoon movie. And at the very end, Miles comes up to the screen and he's like, we are all the Spider-Man. You can be the Spider-Man. And it's like this message at the very end was not complex. He's not saying you had to be the superhero. You had to, swing from a web. He was saying you can stand up for good. You can be accountable for your actions. You can be responsible for what you put into this world. That's what I was taking out of those few words that this cartoon was given, that the director wrote into it. And it's like, when I look back, and I never said this before, but when I look back and I think about it, which is the reason why I brought up the conversation with my daughter earlier, was because I began to realize that my children have power. And I'm not going to let them sit on it. I'm going to teach them how to use it in my house.
Come on.
I'm going to show them how to show up. I'm going to teach them about how to speak. I'm going to teach them about how to weigh things out. I always said with my first daughter that I would teach her. And I told my wife that, and I told my kids that I would teach my daughter how to weigh good and bad. I thought that was more important than knowing the rules. If you know how to weigh good and bad, if you know how to weigh evil and good, if you know how to see the difference between right and wrong by the justification of your own heart and what you have learned, your mind, your experience, half of the time you ain't never going to break a law unless the law needed to be broken.
Yeah.
And some laws may need to be broken.
Absolutely.
Because man made them. And he
Yep.
made them for a reason. All laws are not made to keep people equal. Some laws are made to make a differentiation. They're made to
perfect man-made
segregate.
laws. Yeah, no perfect man-made laws for sure.
Yeah. So when you learn justice, judgment, equity, virtue, when you learn these things and you begin to apply it in the way you think, then all of a sudden you're able to move where you've never been before. Because the custom of life, living is living, y'all. Wherever you go, living is living and dying is dying.
Mm-hmm.
Wherever you go, living is living, dying is dying. Some people think differently about it, but don't get it wrong. Don't get it twisted. Living is still living and dying is still dying. There are just and verdant rules that we all can live by. And I felt like it was my job to explain that to my children. And as I grew, I began to realize my children got power to give me something back.
Mm.
And I began to lean into that power. It took some time. It wasn't until my second daughter got a little bit older. She was probably about 15. I started to lean into her for one particular moment. And when I did, I realized how much wisdom was already inside of her.
Mm.
And that's when I started to open up that door. That wasn't that long ago, 2020. That's when it happened. I realized it, Doc, man. And now I have these grown-up conversations with these children.
Mm-hmm.
Even my son, 15 years old, grown-up conversation. And I dare you to try to go kid on me. You go kid out there with your friends. But still remember and hear the difference between right and wrong, because it's up to you what happens to you when you get outside this household. You're 15 now. You're making choices on your own. I'm not going to be there. Mike, I mean, it got so deep with him. I don't know if I told you this one. I just told my mother this a few days ago. I said it got to the point where I took my son out on the side of the road and I said, and you know I don't cuss. I said, cuss me out. Eyes opened up wide. I said, cuss me out right now. He looked at me like, this dude tripping. I cussed that boy out right there in the middle of that parking lot. I said, now you do it. And he gathered his strength. He gathered his stones and he cussed me out. And I said, dare some other man try to teach my son how to cuss. I said, in my house, we don't do that, son. In my house, we don't do that. We're not going to cuss out our siblings, mom, dad. I ain't going to cuss you out. But I realize you may be in a particular situation while you're out there in the world, and you may be in a spot where you need to do whatever you need to do. Don't be afraid to. But you're going to learn it from me. You don't need to learn that from whoever this is, this singer, this TV show, from the friends at school. I'm going to give it to you right now. I'm the man up in this thing. And I'm going to give it to you so that you got it as a tool. Now that you know you have it as a tool, you know I'm not going to be upset with you if you felt like you needed to go there. Go there, boy. Do the thing. I'm teaching you how to be a man. And sometimes a man got to do what a man got to do. Do what you got to do. Because here's the bottom line. God is not looking for all the things that we are judging people by. I need you to understand that, son. There's so many rules that man has made up. Like, oh, you're going to be this and that by God. God ain't looking at all that stuff. He's looking at your heart.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if your heart is corrupt, then your mouth will say corruption all day long. But even David, when he stood in front of the king, when he was running from the king of the Philistines, when he was running from Saul, because Saul was going to kill the man, the Bible says he feigned himself as a fool. In other words, he pretended like he was crazy. You see what I'm saying? It's like he needed to do something to survive, to live another day. God didn't go back and be like, you acted like a fool. What a bad representative of me. No, God returned and said, he is a man after my own heart. Shut the door up. With all this mess about people, they stop being so judgmental of things. This is the power of communication, y'all. We got to start teaching the whole truth, not just our own truth. Fix the narrative inside the minds of people, inside the minds of yourself, inside the minds of those you love by giving them the whole truth. Don't just give them the bright side of the sun. Give them the dark side of the moon so that they know the difference between the two. How you going to walk the line if you don't know when the line starts or ends? You can't walk the line. You ain't got no idea. That's why how people are lost inside the grave, because they ain't got no clue what it's like to do right, and they ain't got no clue what it's like to do wrong. They ain't got no understanding, and we too busy as a people teaching people what we think is right. Shut the front door. Ain't got nothing to do with that.
This is what I was looking for when you said, I said, shut the front door, but I'm glad you covered it up. Not that we monetized anyways, if the brother feel like saying it. Let me tell you something. Are you and I friends on the Bible app?
Oh, I don't know. We can be. I don't know which Bible app you use. I use Olive Tree.
Okay, so no. And I'm just asking you that. I preface that by saying, I'm currently in First Samuel's. So you just mentioned a story in First Samuel. And I forget what chapter it was. Might have been 26, 25, something like that. I think I'm in 27, but it wasn't today. I know it might have been the day before. Either way.
You just read it.
Yeah. So immediately when he was with the king of the Philistines, when he was running from Saul, and then he was actually doing raids on their own the Philistines village, and he was killing man and child and women, and keeping the sheep and the cattle, so on and so forth, for his men to eat or whatever it was. He had 600 men that he went over there with. And then the king of Philistine asked him, said, you know, where are you going? And he straight up lied. He said, I'm going to the, you know, he was going to Israel side, and I'm this is where I'm getting all this stuff from. And so the king of Philistine is like, I think his name was Gash, or I'm not sure. He said, you know, that made him feel good. Like, oh man, he's a threat to his own people. Like, I got David. You know, they sung the song, Saul killed his hundreds, and David killed his thousands, or something like that. That's in there. Like, that's just showing you how reputable this man was when it came to war. Like, the king couldn't outdo him, but he was doing it for the king, you know. And I look, I said, well, wait a minute. Isn't David this is because you're taught these things. Well, what does it really mean? Isn't David a man of God's own heart? Why would this person that they're describing as such, he would lie, right? So now I'm in this because I'm taught that judgmental side of it. Right? But you mentioned something that, and our current president said it the best. We've been doing this so long, we don't even know what we're doing. So we've been teaching our side. This is our truth. This is our such and such, as opposed to what you said it so eloquently, teaching them what the sun looks like, and you said the other side of the moon,
the bright side of the sun and the dark side of the moon.
And so what we're talking about here is the discernment and the ability. We're giving our children, which I'm loving the conversation you have with Jonah and such. Guys, these guys are checking in on our lives, right? We're giving them the ability, our children, the ability to be able to discern these things, because everybody else is going to try to push it on you. We're going out into this world once again, and we're fighting ignorance and a narrative. We're fighting things of not the whole truth, but my truth. This is my truth. Well, wait a minute. How many are there? And then when it comes to you, for you to digest it, like I said, sometimes the brother put the truth in front of me, and I need to go take my 3 days. I need to take my 3 weeks. Oh, well, that's my journey. That's your, just like you, it might be your journey. Sometimes you may need to go take 3-6 months. I don't know. But you need to be still within the truth of the matter. And if the truth is the truth, time can't do nothing with it.
Time can't do nothing.
Feelings, whatever. It is eternal. It is unwavering. You know, it is what it is. And then it is what you make it. And you can choose that, or you can't choose that. These identities that we choose, sometimes they abhor the truth. Be careful with the identity that you're running around with. Go figure out, take your time to figure out. I don't know how long it's going to take you. And then, getting back to the conversation in the communication, if we start from that, I wrote in here, one of the issues we have is we don't start from it. We don't look to find, we don't spend time attempting to figure this truth out so that we can speak on it and we can pass this on to guide our children on whatever it is. There's a person who talked, Phil Collins. He wrote a book called Exactly What to Say, right? So check him out. Awesome book, Exactly What to Say by Phil. And he talks about mastering moments.
Yes,
I've spoken on this before. He talks about mastering moments.
I remember.
And this is as simple as it's as simple as this with our words and being in it, because we talk about being careful with our words. So you would say, well, Mike and Joe, y'all done spoke for about 2 hours now. What's some simple ways for us to do this, right? And we'll dive deeper into it, but just think on this about mastering the moment. What are some things that happen to you all the time, right? I'll say most people, if you're going home to your wife and children, how much time do you spend trying to make that a great moment? Like, what am I going to say to my wife or to my children when I see them? What kind of impact I want to have with them? Or is it more so going to be about me just I'm home, dinner is dinner, let's make dinner. It's the same thing over and over again. How impactful can I be with this? It's coming. It's funny, he had the situation with with Jonah. I'm anticipating, and I teach Elijah to anticipate these moments as well. I knew this. I know moments like that are going to come up with me and Elijah. So I already need to have in my mind, how am I going to approach it? It's not going to take me by surprise. I already know to expect it. It's happening. But there's moments that we have that happen all the time. And then we wonder, well, I can't do this. I don't understand why I can't get through it. How much time are you spending to master that moment and picking the words that align with you and your truth and your authentic self? How long do we spend to do that? How much time are you? The ride home, you should kind of be thinking about it. Decompress. I'm going to go meet my significant other and my children. How I'm going to approach it. When I go pick up my son, the youngest. Shouts out to Paul.
Hey, Paul.
Paul tell me, he say, I want this, yes or no.
Ooh, that's a Seville.
Like he don't want you to put any extra on it. He's like, Daddy, I want a cookie, yes or no.
I like the way you tell that story like you didn't teach him that. Yeah, I love that.
He get it for a second. I'm sure, my demonstration is strong in the house. So they all of them know.
And what Dave Chappelle say? My demonstration is strong.
It's strong. My demonstration is strong. They know Daddy is unwavering. And I'm not saying unwavering by just being I don't want to say the word, but just being a jerk. Yeah,
you're a decision maker.
Right. But they know that it's Daddy's, he's consistent. No, I want to know, but it's such and such. I don't know, brother. I said it in 2 different languages the first time. I know I said it in Spanish and in English. I know I speak English fluently. I always tell them I went to Toastmasters. You can see my award, but I just so happened to also say it in Spanish when I said it. No,
No, it's such a universal language word.
So Paul says yes or no. Right. And he's gonna take it either way, which I'm proud of him for. I'm like, no. Oh man. And, and that's that. So but either way, the demonstration. So it's like even my son Paul knows how to have this conversation. Right. And probably thinks about it before he asks. I don't know whether he does or not, but it seems
tell everybody how old Paul is.
Paul's 4, right? So Paul's 4. Paul and he's asking for something and he approaches it. But I digress. I want to talk about when I'm going to go see him, and I'm spending that time right before I'm picking him up, and I'm saying, okay, how am I going to make this interaction welcoming and joyful for him? Because initially, kids, as is natural to them, they don't want to leave a mother. Mom is mom. She's even more mom when she's young, and she's a decent human being. When you have a loving mother, you got a loving mother. It is what it is. So you take an affinity to her. So me going to go pick him up as his father, what I need to do, and the first couple of times is rough, and I've seen it, and a lot of people talk about that. Oh, I seen recently. Well, the kid is crying, to go to the car. Well, naturally, that's naturally what should happen. But me as a thinking man, and I'm looking at it, spending time, how can I make this welcoming? Because over time, now he just runs. Right? It started off with, you got to go grab him. you know, and talk to him, to now to where he's running to you. It doesn't happen overnight. I tell people the first 3 months, you're just trying to figure it out. We really just started to get a gist of it at around 6 to 9 months. But the time has nothing to do with how I'm going to approach it. I'm going to master these moments regardless of what it is. It could be 3-4 years. Think about this. Because the first couple of times, or the first couple of years, nothing may change. But I'm not in it for time. I'm in it for eternity, because I'm about this truth.
Woo.
We really got to stop, and this will help with the impact of words and how we go over the next couple of weeks or next months, or however long it is that we decide to do it. Is that don't really be thinking about the time. Don't put a time to it. Everybody know I don't like time. I always say it's more about focus and effort, because that's where you should kind of where you should be, is the focus and effort. Okay, today I'm not going to say I have to do this. I'm going to say I get to do this. And it sounds crazy at first, right? But we're changing our words, we're changing our worlds, we're changing our identity, or we're choosing an identity. Let me say we're choosing a certain identity. So now I get to do this. It may come out sarcastic, whatever, but you just continue. You put your focus on it. You put your effort on it, because you said something that Sierra, I guess it must have been Sierra who you had the conversation with, right? Where you get to do this change. You know what I mean? Like we get to work through this thing. We get to choose it. And the easiest way to start is with your words. Now, it may be empty. Yeah, I'm not a fan of what we used to do all the time, affirmations. I used to, right? And maybe and there's probably something good in that, but I always say there's something empty. But once you start to experience these things and you just keep putting it over and over in your mind, you start to change your words, and then you start to put something behind it. You get to figure out what that looks like when I'm putting my spirit or my all into something. Like this is you learning and understanding yourself. The brother said he's taught his kids how to discern, or right or wrong, judged upon what's going on in their heart. If you're not used to that happening, or you haven't been taught that, you have to figure it out. I went into the gym the other day, man. I'm not getting into that story. A guy was he was asking me about nutrition, a younger guy. He say, so what are you doing with your nutrition? Because I got a nutritionist, so on and so forth. He's like, my nutritionist told me that this is bad, this is good, this is bad. I said, I said, I can't tell you, right? You're working with a professional, so I'm hoping that you're gaining some information of it. And he said, well, can you just give me something? I said, okay, well, all I can tell you is this. You get a chance to figure out your body. No matter how much this person knows about a certain thing, whether it's weightlifting or nutrition or whatever it is, and they can be quite adept in their information and their knowledge, you get to do the journey yourself. So if you get to understand that part of it over the next 12, I would say, and I say this about everything, do the things for 12 weeks. Observe the rules, because these people they understand the rules. Calories out versus calories in. You know, I get a blood test. Figure out what that is, what your blood type is. So figure out what agrees with your body, because some of us are allergic to certain things, or we become inflamed by eating certain things. Like oftentimes there's somebody out there who gets inflamed by eating turkey, whereas most of the world can eat turkey. It's not. It doesn't cause much inflammation, but somebody might be. It might not agree with you. So you might be better with beef, or you might be better with chicken or salmon. Like, you get to figure this out. Now you can. When you get to where I'm at, you get to take joy in that. Sometimes it's like straight willpower and discipline. Like, I say, now you get to play. Now you get to play with it. Bring joy back into this thing. That's how we need to. And then you start to figure out. Same thing with our heart. Well, this is the first time I'm hearing this. I would have, I don't like. When was the first time someone said to be aligned with with your heart and your spirit. Like, what is that about? In the context of you and not what it looks like for them.
Mm. Mm.
So we get to figure out these words. Okay, maybe get's not a great word for you. Try it on. And then after a while, say, okay, I found a better word. Oh, praise be. Go, show out then, bring it to the forefront. But you get a chance to go along this journey. We're going to go over these couple of, this series. We're going to give you some suggestions. We're going to give you some great frameworks. Like what I spoke about in the beginning. This is communication is similar to psychology in the way that there's not a locus of thought. There's a lot of different thoughts out there, and we have the internet now, so it's all over the place. This is why it's also important possibly to get a mentor or a guide to kind of help you in that way, to help you see the blind spots, help you kind of piece it together for yourself. There are some rules involved in it as well, right? That carry across. There are some things that tend to be more effective depending on the culture, because I know that's one of the things the brother said we're going to speak on. We're going to speak on the cultures, right? We're going to expose you to these different things because in different cultures, certain things are said or done differently. Certain things trigger different things. We get to see from our culture. Okay, well, when you said you're not voting Democrat, you become the enemy. You know what I mean? Like you go to church, are you the enemy? You question this, you're the enemy, right? So maybe I don't need to say that. Maybe I just need to come about it differently. Maybe I don't need to say nothing at all. That's the silence episode that we'll do. But we get a chance to delve into the culture. We get a chance to give you examples about the worlds that are opening up for you and or closing. I can tell you right now, there's a lot of worlds that close just based upon the words that you're using. It happens all the time. There's certain times people come up to me and say, such and such, I ain't gonna say nothing. Can't you help me? No, I can't. You're not, you said something that allowed me to discern that it's not the time. You need some more information. You need some more exposure, right? So I'm excited. You can tell this is going to be awesome because we don't really talk. We done had a bunch of hour episodes. We spoke for 2.5 hours or close to 2.5 hours.
We haven't done this in a while, bro.
Yeah. I'm glad we had the time and we put it together. And as you can tell, we're passionate about this stuff. And because it has such real world practical uses for us as we continue to grow. Like I'm sure a lot of you out there are as well, as we continue to grow and we get to expand and expose ourselves. Like we're no longer limited to certain things, and we get to expand, and your words open up words are worlds, but it opens it up. The more you expand your lexicon, the words that you use every day, the more your world opens up. The more you start to hear opportunities, you start to see and hear opportunities, and then all of a sudden the world just becomes a place of just wonder and amazement because there's so much out there because you're having this conversation, or you heard a conversation and now you can speak on it, right? I'm listening to these people speak in the gym, and it's something they were talking about the price of food and the logistics of it and why food prices are so high. It's, so on and so forth. Well, because I've expanded in this area, in this arena, we can have conversations and they're more forthcoming, right? And you can draw more out of people because now it's not only what it is that you're saying and what you're adding to the conversation, but you can also ask the correct questions that open it up. This is why this LLM, ChatGPT AI model is so powerful. It's not about what you know or how to use it. It's when you really get down to the crux of it, it's how do you prompt it? How can you phrase a question?
Hey, Mike.
Yeah.
Just want to give a shout out to Zaid. He said he's got to go. He said, great message to you. Good evening, fellas.
Good evening, brother.
He's been with us for about an hour.
Oh man, shouts out to him.
Yeah,
shouts out to you.
100%
Yeah.
appreciation to
Shout
you.
him out. Appreciate you. But
Go ahead, bro.
the way that you prompt it, it can give you two totally different things if you ask it. So sometimes I say like, well, listen to this question, improve upon my question. And this is what we do. So even in sales, I just improve upon the question that I ask so that the people can kind of understand how to understand it themselves. Like, what am I thinking? Okay, so when you say this, right, like what exactly is it that you actually mean? So we're gaining the clarity. But this improves upon the conversation that you're using, the type of words. I know not to trigger you, right? Like, oh no, this is, there's something called sales hesitancy. There's different words for it, but it makes you hesitate when you hear some type of salesy kind of, when people come off salesy. There's certain things, when somebody's going looking for a car salesman comes out and says, so, are you looking for a car or whatever it is that you say? You're like, oh, I don't want to hear that. There's a certain different kind of way. What brings you in today?
That's
right.
good.
Like you just thought, what brings you in today? Oh, I was just looking. This is coming. Most salespeople, like, we know what's coming. Oh, I was just looking. Oh, you do. Okay. So what have you thought about so far? What are your thoughts? What have you seen? And then you kind of just allow the conversation to develop. This is how we can treat everything.
Right.
Okay. I went in, I met my significant other today. I came in and I said, what's for dinner? And she looked at me crazy because she was doing XXNO all day long. All I came in there like, man, what's for dinner? Or why isn't dinner? Okay. The next time I come out now, because you're getting feedback, everything is data. Okay. How was your day?
So good. Right. That goes back to effective communication, the power of communication. Like right now, what you talking about? We're talking about reforming how we speak, how we communicate to get positive results instead of just saying what comes to your mind.
Yeah. It's good, man. And then it goes from there. What did I say? Oh, how was your day man? What was the most difficult part of your day? And then if you really want to just, I'm going to give y'all a good trick. Hey, what was the best part of your day today? Like what made you light up today? Listen.
That's it.
They in the back. Nothing. Oh man, well, what is it that you need? Because now we know there's something there. Like, you don't got to go in there. What's your problem? What's your problem? Why what was the best part of your day today? Nothing. Everything just went bad. All right. So now, okay. So let's figure out something. Now we can get to thinking, man. There's just different ways of how we frame and we come in and we have these conversations and really listen. And we'll get to that. All right. I'm done. I think I was long-winded. What do you say, bro? What do you want to?
No, that was good, man. That was real good. I've actually been talking with my mother about what you were just saying right there, and I want to bring it up on the screen before we go because I want the people to actually be able to, see it. I want to be able to see where you just went because that was heavy, and people don't realize that they've already learned this. That's it. That's what Mike was just talking about. It's not that you're asking these questions because you don't care. Like, you can use these questions, but if you use them for the right reasons, this is what you're getting into. People, see that right here where it says love needs, safety needs. Look at love needs. Love, affection, friendship, intimacy, children, all of that type of stuff. Like, it's in the hierarchy, it's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And when you start meeting people where they have a need of I don't know why this one says this. I probably could have picked a better one, but this used to be called a feeling of belonging.
Yeah.
That's what that was. It wasn't called love needs. It was a feeling of belonging. That's what you got to right here. A feeling of belonging on step 3. And that thing is so powerful because it's like people need to feel like they actually matter.
Yeah.
And when we go in there, hey, what's for dinner? It's like, what? The only thing I'm good for is cooking you a meal?
Yeah.
I've been working all day long.
Mm-hmm.
Well, your word ain't no more difficult. My work is difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I had trouble. It's hard to be a black man growing up in this world. Well, it's hard to be, insert whatever for the woman.
Yeah.
Hard to be a woman, whatever. Hard to be a black woman. Hard to be a Spanish woman. Hard to be an Egyptian woman. I don't know. Insert whatever, because you can actually insert whatever to anything.
Yep.
And it just comes down to, do you even care about the person? The relationships, communication. True communication is when you connect.
Mm-hmm.
And if all you're doing is just spitting words out, then that's exactly what you're doing. You're spitting on somebody else. And don't nobody like to be spit on. Nobody wants to be spit on. So stop spitting. Start communicating. Start connecting. And it's going to change your results. I love what you just said. That's a great framework. I think we can close on that framework. If everybody just went back and used that framework in their life and came back and said, man, we can even put you on the show. If y'all still out there, you listening, and you go use that framework, you can get on the show, and we want to hear the testimonial. Now, if you go off the cuff, we're going to cut you off and cut you out. And
I don't know what you're saying. I say, I spend a lot of time in love, right? And I heard Nur Muhammad, if you check him out, he wrote a bunch of different books. One of the things that he mentioned was that love anticipates.
Love
anticipates needs. So if the chart's gone now, but if you looked at that chart and you saw that the love and the hierarchy of needs, we anticipate, so you start to think ahead for these people. I used to say it's about consideration, but this just takes it to the next level, right? I think first, when you start to develop a relationship with people, you start to you consider these things. Well, what does consider mean? Consider means that I'm thinking about it, right? I'm thinking that you're hungry. You hungry? I'm thinking that you're hungry. I'm thinking, something's wrong with you. I put it in my mind, but I don't necessarily act on it. But I'm considering it, right? That's normally the beginning of a relationship. But then what the brother Nur Muhammad said was love, and then love anticipates. So now, even before you say something to me, you've been knowing that and think about this, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, I've been in, and I know I get it. I ain't been in it 20 years, but there's a couple of y'all out there that's been 10, 20, 30 years, right? I know after 2 years, I tell people that I know something in 3 months. In 3 months, I can pretty much read you a book of rights on anything. I don't care what it is. People, you spend 3 months with me, I'm going to know you, right? In a certain kind of way. Even if you think that you're putting on a front, I know something, right? Mm-hmm. When I get to that love part, I start to anticipate. I'm going to ask you possibly, right, to get clarification on time and so on and so forth. But then you just start to anticipate that. So if you truly love somebody, you start to anticipate, and you want this thing to work in a certain kind of way. Put in your duties and responsibilities that I'm anticipating. Some of us are just showing up, and I get it. We sometimes it's all that we know, but you're listening to us at this point in time. We're talking about communication. A part of that is to anticipate. Another framework we'll get into is from Nonviolent, Marshall Rosenberg. Go check him out. He had Nonviolent Communications. But there's a part of that framework where we talk about dominating language, corrective language, and then empathetic language. And you can kind of figure out where you are on the hierarchy of those things. All of them are important, but there's times when certain things are needed. You need to discern. That's why when the brother spoke about his children, he's teaching them about discernment first and foremost, right? Discern and how it comes from the heart. And after that, everything kind of falls into place. No matter what kind of law comes out, whatever. This is my belief. It supersedes it. This man-made law. I'm not telling you to go out there and do anything illegal. I'm just saying that there's times when you need to discern. He said, a man's got to do what a man's got to do. We don't curse in this house. But I know when you go out here, there's going to come times where you need to do what you have to do. When you think about it, oftentimes, now there's some people that know how to curse because they know how to and do it well. All right. But oftentimes it's just lazy language. It's just being lazy. And because I heard somebody else say it, I'm going to repeat the same things. And it could be cursing. It could be sometimes it's just in sticks and stones may break my bones, but words, that's lazy communication. Once you become adult and mature and understand it. So now you get a chance to get into the corrective. Is kind of probably where most people need to stay, but no, most people probably need to stay in the empathetic. Get as high as you can on that ladder with the time that you have, right? If it's not urgent, you're not screaming at someone to get out of the road or whatever it is. Like oftentimes once we understand that, we spend time in that. Man, this is gonna be an awesome series, man. I'm excited, guys.
I'm excited.
Go back, go look at some things that, hey, I want, especially in relationships, because it's probably the easiest thing. Go think about some relationships that you want to improve upon. Bring it to us so that we can kind of work on it together while we're having, bring it up. Hey, man, such and such is going on. What do you think? We from our vantage point, we'll say what we think, what we can kind of, what we think you can do, and then you can kind of put it into practice. Try it on, so. Come back next week with that. Time well spent. Appreciate y'all.
Yeah, 100%. A lot of love out there. We definitely thank y'all from all platforms. We saw y'all coming through on the Seville reel. We appreciate y'all on the Palm Beach mic. We appreciate y'all. I think that's I don't know what that's called. Twitch. That's what that is. We saw y'all on YouTube, on Tenacity Foundation. We saw some of y'all come up for Palm Beach Mike on the YouTube. Some of y'all came up inside the Mike Seville Real Estate on Facebook. And some of y'all came up on the Tenacity, the J. Simmons Tenacity on IG. So we just want to say thanks from everybody for being supportive of this episode. Looking forward to seeing y'all next week. You're on mute, bro.
Yeah. See you next week, man. Love you guys. Peace.